Hi, good evening. Father Alexander here at St. Peter's in Hove, and I want to carry on with the book of Leviticus. Now, in the book of Leviticus, you get certain verses that resonate down the ages. 2,000 years later, 3,000 years later, people are taking these verses very seriously. So, for example, um, we have at 1927, you will not round off your hair at the edges or trim the edges of your beard. Well, curious, you should not round off your hair at the edges. Seems to be a prohibition of pudding bowl haircuts. And then you will not trim the edges of your beard. Okay, so in other words, your beard must be a full beard. You're not allowed to cut your beard. Rounding off the hair at the edges is nowadays translated to mean you have to grow peyot. That is to say, the ringlets, as we call them, that our very strict Jewish brethren have, and which are a marking feature of our very strict Jewish brethren. The peyot are, we call them ringlets in English. What they do is that they curl them to make them shorter, and so you can have very long peyot and so on and so forth. And you'll see this if you go and look at any, for example, television program about Orthodox Jewish people. And those television programs, incidentally, are becoming more and more popular. There are quite a few good ones on Netflix. So somebody wrote this 3,000 years ago, and it's still very much a thing, the idea of having the peyot and the idea of having a long beard. And then it goes on, it says, you will not gash your bodies when somebody dies, which might have been a custom in the Middle East in those days, and you will not tattoo yourselves. I am the Lord. So tattoos are completely out as well. Now, what we don't have here, and this is a problem for us Christians, I dropped my bookmark. What we don't have here is a reason why. Why are you not allowed to tattoo yourself? Well, I think the obvious reason why you shouldn't tattoo yourself is because it's a desecration of your body. Your body was given to you by God. Your body does not need added decoration, and therefore tattooing doesn't seem right. However, having said that, we do allow women to pierce their earlobes and wear earrings, and that seems to be sort of an improvement on the beauty that we were given by God, and other piercings as well. What do we allow and what we don't allow? It's all rather problematic. It's really the key thing from a Christian point of view is what is good for the person. Is it good for you to tattoo yourself, or is it not such a great idea to tattoo yourself, in the sense as is it a form of desecrating your own integrity? But as for haircuts, I really can't see how haircuts are a moral question at all. They're a social question. There used to be a very big thing when I was a child about, although it had already passed by that time, about long hair in men. And for example, when General Pinochet's coup happened in Chile, the soldiers went through the streets giving forcible haircuts to anybody whose hairstyle they didn't like. The idea being that long hair was degenerate in men. It's not. Long hair is just long hair. Louis XIV had beautiful flowing locks. He was certainly not degenerate. Neither was King James II of England and Scotland, who was an excellent person. So it's purely social convention with the length of your hair. Now, in Leviticus also we have other rules about skin disease. Now, clearly these are practical. There must have been a lot of skin disease around, or leprosy around at the time, and there are lots and lots of things about how to deal with an outbreak of leprosy. And for us people nowadays, we do know infectious diseases can be serious, and therefore we have rules about dealing with infectious diseases. Then it goes a bit further, and we have quite a lot about how any flow of blood is unclean and any bodily discharge is unclean. And we have the extraordinary idea that all sexual intercourse is unclean, and if a man has sexual intercourse with his wife, then they're unclean for the rest of the day. They have to wash, and then they are unclean. This is at 15:18. When a woman has had intercourse with a man, both of them must wash, and be unclean until the evening. This is a very strange thing because sexual intercourse is, whatever you call it, it's certainly a natural process. Why should it be unclean? Now, it's quite possible that certain types of bleeding mean that you're diseased, and certain types of bodily discharge mean you are diseased, and therefore some sort of action has to be taken about that. But to say that every type of bleeding is unclean, every type of bodily discharge is unclean, is very mysterious indeed. One of the things about the book of Leviticus is the book of Leviticus is clearly very concerned with the idea of blood. So you're not allowed to have sexual intercourse with your wife if she is if she's menstruating, you see, because there's a flow of blood and so on and so forth. And indeed, anything you touch, if you've got a bodily discharge, must be destroyed and so on. We have in chapter 15. And in chapter 18:22, you have one of the most famous or controversial or talked about verses in the book of Leviticus. You will, this is 18:22, you will not have intercourse with a man as you would with a woman. This is a hateful thing. And the next verse goes on to say, you will not have intercourse with any kind of animal. You would become unclean by doing so, nor will a woman offer herself to an animal to have intercourse with it. That would be a violation of nature. Now, here we have, if you like, a difficulty in interpretation, and all scripture needs to be interpreted, and this is difficult to interpret. First of all, why you will not have intercourse with a man as you would with a woman, that is a hateful thing. Well, why is it a hateful thing? There's no doubt that the author of the book, and indeed all the readers of the book, thought it was a hateful thing, certainly did not approve of homosexual behaviour. That's a fact. They did not approve of it. It's not quite clear why they didn't approve of it. They obviously felt a great revulsion against it, but please remember that feeling revulsion against something is not moral. There are quite a lot of things that are utterly revolting, but which are neither immoral or moral, they're just indifferent. So, for example, I personally, when I'm watching television and I see an operation going on, somebody being cut open and so on, I just can't watch. I think it's awful, but it's not immoral. It's indifferent. So what's so wrong about having intercourse with a man as you would with a woman? And incidentally, clearly the author of the book of Leviticus has to express himself using the language at his disposal. And for him, the word homosexuality has never been heard of. It was invented by Freud millennia afterwards. And therefore, homosexual behavior is a man having intercourse with a man as you would with a woman. It's actually a reference to anal intercourse. Anyway, it's an abomination. But also, then you get this other thing. Women offering themselves to animals. However, the mind does boggle about how you do that. But this would be a violation of nature. Now, what we've got here is a whole load of laws in the book of Leviticus that are not per se moral laws. They're more laws to do with cleanliness. So is homosexual intercourse dirty or is it immoral? That's the very question we're asking. Now, the woman offering herself to an animal, that clearly is a violation of nature. So that would be immoral, I think. That is tending to immoral rather than just dirty. But as you can see, excuse me, quite a lot of the rules in the book of Leviticus are nothing to do with morality, like what sort of haircut you have, not to cut your beard, and not tattooing yourself. They're not quite moral. They're on the edge of morality. I suppose many people would say, and they've got a point, that the book of Leviticus is to be interpreted as a book of a desert community living in the desert and so on. Some people would say that. As a matter of fact, they're not altogether correct, because the book of Leviticus would have assumed its final form many hundreds of years after the settlement of the Jewish people in the land. So it reflects not just the desert experience, it also reflects the settled experience. This reflects the mindset that people had in, for example, the reign of King Solomon. So, but the trouble is, it's not actually a code, a handbook of moral theology in the modern and accepted sense. I could talk about this more, but we're really running out of time. We're almost 10 minutes All the very best. I'll speak about the book of Leviticus next time. Bye.